Welcome to Horticulture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture. All right, so we're approaching fall, but we're not there yet. But
the weather is variable.
My question for you today is, what smell is like something that's bringing you like some joy right now? Like,
I'm going to say it's not cabbage, which we talked about a little bit on our last episode.
Yeah, not cabbage.
Not rotting cabbage. No.
Well, that's good. That's a positive.
Properly fermenting cabbage though, because I just pulled out. We just pulled out our big batch of sauerkraut that I let rock and roll for a little while.
That's not bad. Yeah, that's good.
Oh man, that's a good smell. It doesn't. I mean, it's a different thing, but. Are you asking for like this time of year associated sort of thing?
Or just, smell in general?
Well, pick your poison.
It's tough in zone 7 because I know people are still producing. The weather may be 70 degrees. It may be 90 here in Kentucky. It varies, but I don't know. It seems like I smell kind of a woodsy, leafy, falling kind of smell, even though leaves aren't falling yet. I start to smell like a dry, crunchy smell. I do. Maybe it's my wishful thinking leading into PSL season.
Or if you're
uninitiated.
Smells dry and crunchy.
Smells dry and crunchy. Unlike, I'm not talking about granola. Come on.
Well, but can you give me more? Those are both. Let me those are both textures.
Yeah, I know. But in my mind, there's a translator that one translates. Sometimes I smell colors. It's fine.
Yeah, you're a synesthete. Okay.
Yes, I have a translator.
Like Jimi Hendrix of fall.
I guess, dog days have happened. It's been hot and it's been dry. It's like the peak of growing. You hit this solar peak and start down the other side, and there's more decay, more brown leafy material, and it's got a certain smell in the garden or the woods. I'm thinking of the woods, but it's
the woods foliage. Over the garden. Garden's like rotten tomatoes at this point.
On commercial fields you do get a little bit of that potpourri, that undertone of rot. Yeah, that's a good point though, Jess. But yeah, in the woods I'm thinking of, you start to get that hot leaf litter smell, and that means fall to me, and I'm looking forward to kind of the cooler temps stuff, which are not here.
The smell of humus.
Yes, not humans, but humus.
No, I don't want to smell humans.
Brief differentiation, but yeah, to me that kind of, this time of year you may have these really hot days, and I kind of associate that. Yeah, it's one of the things. Sure.
I feel like I've smelled more people around our neighborhood, like cooking with wood, or just having little bonfires in their backyard, or I don't know what exactly it is, but just like the smell of wood smell, and like lower, slower barbecue kind of vibe, headed into fall. That's like a part of it for me that I just noticed that, because I was going to say overall our August was relatively mild, I thought, compared to what it could have been.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Compared to the terrible June when it was like blazing hot in like the second week of June, we've had like a couple of multi-day stretches that were like very chill for August, and so that it gave a little false fall vibes.
I had the flannel halfway out, and then I was like, nope, too soon.
Too soon.
Better not.
So this will go to air. People will be hearing this on September 1st. And I have a September birthday, and so I always liked to believe that my birthday would be in the fall, but it was always a sweaty time still. Can you all just do a quick check on when is it that we actually think about having some sort of a frost?
In central Kentucky, we usually say no earlier than like mid-October, but like
mid-October.
Lately, it's been late October.
Mm-hmm. I will say that it's usually pretty cold. It starts to get cold around the end of October in Halloween because of... Yeah.
It's either 30 degrees or 85 degrees on Halloween.
I always want to buy a Halloween hoodie because I enjoy the Halloween season, but I never can commit to that because, just as you said, Alexis, we've had these Halloweens that's 85, 90 degrees, and then we've had Halloweens that are in the 50s. Yeah. We've had snow on Halloween before.
Raise your hand if your mom made you cover your Halloween costume with a jacket.
Somebody's bitter. I feel bitter.
Is this for cold or for like modesty?
Yeah, so that's an important differentiation.
I'm not sure what that means you think about me, Brett, but
Well, I didn't know if you were asking me
Totally
if my mom
modesty.
ever slut shamed me into wearing a coat
Yeah.
over my.
Total modesty, yeah.
No, I was just saying it was
Cover up,
snowing
young
outside,
child.
and Mom was like, "You have to wear a jacket."
Oh yeah, that's totally where we were
For
going
me,
with
it was because it was a little too risque.
Yeah.
Like easy there.
Listen, Mom did
It
not.
could be either cold
have-
or hot.
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And that's why I can't commit to like the wardrobe. You cannot commit to a Halloween. Like Reed will commit to a full astronaut fleece lined outfit for Halloween and it turns out to be 90. I'm like, you will perish inside of that.
You will perish.
You will perish.
Simulating the coming back through the atmosphere and the hot.
Yes, the heat shields are down, Captain. They are way down. Yeah, exactly.
My kids are just tractors. I just make tractor costumes every year.
Nice.
Well,
Diaper
one of
boxes.
yours was corn on the
breathable?
cob last year, right? So
Yeah, one of them was an ear of corn last year. So we had a John Deere tractor with a bucket loader on it. Yes, I built a bucket loader out of
Wow.
people. And then an ear of corn. And there's a
Superstar.
great picture of Alexis with the ear of corn last year. So he was nice and toasty on Halloween. My other child was like freezing to death, but you can't really cover up a cardboard tractor.
It's hard, man.
Cold start.
It's really hard. It's really hard. Yeah.
you must sacrifice
Is the
for your
brand
craft.
loyalty of the tractors shift, or is it pretty?
Oh, now we're meddling.
No, we do not discriminate in tractor color inside of my house, right?
I
We
gotcha.
have them of all colors that you can easily step on. But he will pick a John Deere. He likes a John Deere bucket loader, is what he said. He actually saw Alexis's Boda, as he called it, and he was impressed with her orange tractor. Yeah. But
I like that.
Not so impressed with her small bush hog.
Just a walk behind tractor, unfortunately.
Your
But
BCS didn't cut it.
yeah,
That would be
but
a very like niche kid that was like, I want to be a BCS for Halloween.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think
Okay,
Joel
that's
from our
oddly
schools
specific.
dressed his
Let's
kid
go
up
with that.
as a
Yeah.
BCS tractor.
Who did?
I said that would be something Joel from Earth.
Oh,
Tools
yeah.
would dress his kids
You
up
just like
as.
give them handles coming out the back of the costume, and they could
Yeah.
be like a little hay.
Yeah, and then that's kind of how you
Baylor.
lead them around when they're young, right? Instead of a
Nice.
leash, you just have the
You can
little.
steer
There you
them.
go. I like that idea. Sounds good to me.
What was your smell, Jess Bess? Was that the original question? What
yeah.
smells do we
Oh,
associate
yeah.
with
Yeah.
what? The oncoming fall? Or
Yeah,
what?
or just like
Well,
You're
yeah.
vibing on right now.
like
Yeah.
the
Vibing on.
same, like as Ray mentioned, I think like fall wise, I think like, I don't know. It's still very much summer to me. Like
It's,
I don't
it's
like
almost a hay smell season still. Like
Mhm.
Yeah,
last
hay
cutting of
smell.
alfalfa smell.
been baking a lot, so a lot of like
Oh,
make a
my
lot of cinnamon
goodness.
rolls at our house. So like the
Oh,
cinnamon rolls
man.
kind of smell from
I'll
bread
be
and
over there
stuff.
in 35 minutes. Or
So-
less.
on
Yeah.
my way.
On my way.
But
Yeah.
it's definitely that weather where you like wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, it's like
Do I need
chilly.
a
I
jacket?
could wear this like sweater, and then by the end of the day, you're like, I'm dying.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm
it's like
dehydrated.
if you're like it's stuck to you, right? It's like too hot to
Yeah.
like you did it when you started school back. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tough.
It was
Yeah, that is a big
it's
breaking point
melting.
if you've got kids as and I didn't realize that would be the case, but and there's other markers of time, but one of the markers of time for me now is when kids go back to school. It's not necessarily weather related, but it's a certain amount of freedom in certain cases. I mean, schedules change. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. That's just one of those cycle things, one of those little monuments that may or may not be in your life. And it just kind of marks things as well. And I was not prepared for that when that's the case now, because it seems like everything flows around school schedules, so much. But that can be interesting, just like farm schedules. And you mentioned baking, Jessica. Is that a seasonal thing for you? You're a baker. I mean, you bake all the good things.
You've
I
been
think-
on the bake.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah. But I was gonna say I see you as like the bread man. Like bread is like bread king.
The
Yeah.
and many other
fermentation
things.
guy.
Yeah. I don't think it's really seasonal, but I think like there's some there's some things that you make that you really only make around like the holidays, right? Or like
Is that what it is?
like I
Yeah.
know like in the spring, like when there's strawberries and stuff, you're not really thinking about making like I don't know, gingerbread cookies, versus
yeah.
you're gonna make like a strawberry pie or strawberry cake with all the fresh strawberries that are out there.
I don't know, bread. It seems like bread would go good with that any time of the year. I'm just saying. Not that I'm encouraging
bread
you.
is always good.
Well, it's this interesting. There's this give and take with it because when it's warm, the fermentation tends to be happier, but me heating up my house to bake it is not so happy. And then when it gets colder, sometimes you got to kind of, I don't know, but I first got into like bread baking in the summer because I, for whatever reason, did at that time. And it's pretty cool. It is interesting to see like the culture, like if you're doing more of a wild fermented sourdough type culture, it does tend to do a little better in the warmer times of the year for one reason or another. Even if you keep it in the same temperature. But I was going to ask Jessica, you said cinnamon rolls. Is cinnamon rolls like a tipping point between summer and fall item in your all's house?
Oh no, cinnamon rolls all the time.
My kids,
my kids
crackers and cinnamon rolls.
Yeah, he's kind of spoiled now with it because he doesn't realize. Like he'll be like, "Let's make cinnamon rolls," and I'm like, "Well, they take like." Because I'm making them from scratch, and I guess I can buy them from the can. But I like them now from scratch too, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, well, let's take 6 hours to make these cinnamon rolls.
Take 30 seconds to eat them.
It's
like Thanksgiving dinner.
But I do it, right? Because I like bread and cinnamon and sugar and
glazes.
And butter, lots of butter.
You need not to sell this anymore because it's already hard sold into my soul.
And they're maple cinnamon rolls. So we put pure maple syrup that we got from Vermont.
I miss making maple syrup. You said maple syrup. That's one thing I used to make almost every year, and that's one of those cyclical things. Yeah, that's pretty cool process.
Yeah, we need to do it. Have we done a maple syrup episode?
No, we have not.
No, we need a good one.
Yeah, we need to do one. The typical maple season being that just after Christmas through
sap flow.
Yeah. Depends.
Shaker Village, that's here in my county, like they tap all sorts of trees. Like they're doing like walnuts and
you can do other stuff. Yeah.
And now I can't think of the other ones, but they're not maples that they're tapping.
Yeah.
And they're making all sorts of different kinds of syrup. So it's kind of cool.
So many things and that's a good question. We talk a lot about cycles and seasons, of course, on horticulture, but so much of what we do has this kind of seasonal rhythm to it. And so I don't know about you all, but I'm always fascinated by it because my mind starts to switch gears at some point magically. When the seasons start to change and kind of your flow and rhythm, even professionally, even the way we deliver educational programs and the activities that we do day in and day out as extension agents and within the extension system, mine changes. So it's seasonality is a kind of a big deal to me still, even though I'm not an active producer anymore as far as.
Yeah. In Kentucky, I always had thought of like September is this magical month where you still have the summer produce and you start to have some of the fall produce. And so you can have like a lettuce salad with peppers and tomatoes in it, all like off this, oh man, it's just this weird confluence of crop timing.
Like May.
Is that what you call the shoulder season, Brad? I've heard you use that term.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, head, shoulders, knees, and toes season, maybe.
Those fringe seasons that are like everything.
Yeah, it's that transition period that is just it's so awesome, and it makes you understand why. We've talked in previous episodes about like the county fair and harvest festivals and stuff like that. It makes you understand why, in a time where localism and seasonality wasn't something that you sort of had to try to do, it was something that you just coped with. Why people would be like, oh my gosh, September and October is the best time of year. There's more food than we know what to do with. We're trying to put stuff up and save it. We're gonna, oh man, let's celebrate. It makes sense.
Seems like so much in horticulture production, just agriculture production also in general, especially in horticulture. But we're trying to take the seasonality out of some of this production with protected ag. We have greenhouses and all this other technology to extend seasons and stuff. But still, seasonality is a real thing here in Kentucky. May not be where you're listening from in your geography, but I know it's still a big deal for me here in Kentucky, no matter how much we put into taking some of that out with even like a greenhouse. But yeah, seasonality is still a real thing.
What was this time of year? What was some of the key whatever meanings or associations during when tobacco was like the thing. This time of year feels like one of those periods where there might be something important happening.
You want to go for it?
No,
you grew it
too. Go. Yeah, this sparks close to home. But go ahead, Jess.
Oh yeah, I think I mentioned that before. That I don't know if I did in my first episode, but I grew up growing tobacco too. My family did that, and there's actually, I think, one of the only tobacco fields left in the county where I live that's right next door to my house. So it's kind of weird, and my kids get to see it. But getting close to that time when they would start cutting. Right, and start cutting and housing
that was a
tobacco.
Huge process.
And that was a huge process, a big family event, a big
all the uncles
event,
and aunts, yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Neighbors, everyone helping to do that. Actually cut it out in the field, but then to like help put it up and house it up in those barns.
Yeah, I just remember, like you said, a community event. We would have a lot of family members plus a few people outside of the family. But I just remember like huge pots of soup beans and cornbread and fried potatoes being brought out to like the field under these big shade trees because it was during a hot time of the year generally. Yeah. I mean, there's still these intermittent hot days when you're cutting, you come in tired for lunch, and all these people just sitting together eating is really cool memories of cutting tobacco. Now, at the time, I didn't think there was anything cool about it because it's very hard work. But yeah, I remember I have some good memories of those big meals we all ate together out, right beside the field. To save time, they would just bring the stuff out to the field or in a barn if you were really lucky and have a little bit of sun protection. Mm-hmm. So yeah, good time of year and busy. When tobacco is cut, you're just always looking at the radar fanatically, hoping that it doesn't rain when you have cure on the tobacco so you can get that up without sand on it, and this whole process that surrounded that. But that's one of those highly, highly seasonal things that was very weather dependent, that whole entire process. So yeah, so cool. When that was a bigger part of Kentucky agriculture. I mean, it still obviously is a big part of Kentucky agriculture, but fewer people are involved in that process now, but It's still here. And I love, it brings back memories every time I go past a field of sticked tobacco that's curing out in the field, and just seeing that, I can smell that, and I feel the gum and the nicotine kind of this residue, this resin you get on your hand from cutting tobacco for 12 hours a day. I can just feel that on my hands. I mean,
so there you go, Alexis. That would be, if it was quite a few years ago, that could be the smell that, I guess.
The smell of tobacco is very, it's very, even curing in the barn, but in the field when you're cutting it. Yeah.
Well, on a previous episode, we had talked about the state fair, and that was one of the smells of tobacco, of hay,
silage,
of some of the just the different like drying and settling in agricultural products was one. I remember the smell of the tobacco room in particular was just like, oh, it smells so. I think it smells so good.
Yeah.
And so that's why I wanted to, for people who had that experience, I wanted to see what you all had to say about that this time of year.
Something that I think about that's getting ready to start. All of them are getting ready to open. Some of them are already open. Are all of these orchards and pumpkin farms and all of that. I talked to one of my pumpkin growers this morning, unfortunately, about disease pressure potentially, but because that gets really high right now for those pumpkin growers, and it's go time for them, right? Nothing worse would be than to get a fungal disease right now before those pumpkins are mature. But he was saying, we're going to be open mid-September, right? And so I think like really when those places open, that really like jump starts everyone's like fall is here, attitude for sure when all those get going.
Oh, definitely. When all the orchards and stuff start to have events. And I know that they a lot of their cash flow comes from just a few weeks in the fall or pre-fall, just whenever they start to do things. But that's when it goes into overdrive, when the weather starts to cool down. And I see my local, we have very lucky to have several local orchards around that we can visit. But when I see that big sign, or local advertisements, then it's on. It is on. For me and we start visiting, taking our son and my wife, we all go out and kind of do all the orchard things, and it's big fun. Yeah, for sure.
Do you all ever pick your own?
Yeah. as far as taking part in those activities.
Yeah, do you and the school and the fam ever go out and pick your own?
But now it's kind of relative, because I know the pumpkin patches every evening. Most pumpkin patches get overran. The original pumpkins get picked, and then you will go out and pick up a pumpkin that they have set there as far as pick your own. But now I used to do a little bit more of that with an orchard that's no longer, it's transitioned into new ownership. We always enjoyed going to a certain orchard and picking like our own apples right off the tree. We love that.
We do that.
We love it. Yeah.
We go and get the apples from the orchards versus the pumpkins, which I think I may have shared before, how my husband's kind of like the pumpkin fairy.
That's right.
He buys, I love pumpkins, but I'm not allowed to grow them because they, as we've talked about before, they take up a lot of space.
Too much space.
So he likes to buy a truckload and then shares them around with everybody.
I've never gotten any of those pumpkins. I'm just saying.
Well, we'll have to make sure you're on his stop. I
need a delivery.
Yeah,
the delivery list.
It could very well be that you're on the naughty list.
Well, that's true.
I do give Jessica gourd plants, which like pumpkins take up a lot of space, so he might have put me on the
I wish you had given me more to take over.
Well, I'm glad you have some, because I semi on purpose, semi on not purpose killed mine. So
one of them is like struggling that I have, and it only has like one gigantic like gourd on it, and it's like this tiny little vine, so I don't really know what's going on there, but
it's doing its job.
Yeah.
I think for me, fall starts when I am starting seeds for fall, which is just kind of coming from like a grower perspective. We've got crops that are finishing up in September. They're, usually going down from disease or something like that. And then a lot of people have, maybe a second succession if they're doing annual crops of stuff that's maybe just starting to come in to fruition. And I feel like fall is just as busy as spring for a lot of growers who are doing some type of annual production, because it's that transition period again. And so you're starting to flip beds, you're putting down cover crop, you're, putting in new crops, maybe you're starting seeds. So that's, it is temperature dependent to a point, but you do kind of know generally when the frost is going to come. So even if it's 90 degrees, you got to get those plants in the ground so they have enough time to kind of, be chill before the first freeze comes. But
can you talk about the timeline of that? Of like, so we have, I think, sounded the alarm at various times on this podcast to say, in July, in June, even be thinking about your fall garden. Make sure you understand how long things are going to take if you're going to be outside. Obviously, some people have high tunnels or low tunnels or whatever else. So what's your, in your all's experience with growing stuff this time of year, what is your typical timeline? You said it starts when you start seeding stuff. You start thinking about it when you start seeding stuff. When is that?
For me, with a lot of the cut flowers, my goal is to have plants in the ground around the beginning of October to mid-October. Then I'm going to overwinter, with a little bit of protection, usually either outside or in, a tunnel situation. So the same could be said for, lettuces or radishes or kales or things like that. So what that means, if I want them in the ground around, by mid-October, I'm seeding them at least the 1st of September, if not earlier, just kind of depends on what it is. So seeding those into flats, if you're doing like a leaf lettuce or a radish, you could be direct seeding those kind of throughout September, really. A lot of those are super cold tolerant. But really thinking about, I'm trying to do a better job at cover cropping, building organic matter, not, bringing in as many inputs from like a compost type standard, which I know a lot of people who are growing are doing, or at least a lot of people I talk to are, just because compost and those types of things are expensive. So, ways to cut down on that. A lot of people are moving to cover cropping, even some of our just home gardeners. And we've got an episode on that. So if you're unfamiliar, go find it. But that stuff needs to be in semi-established before it gets too cold. And so in central part of Kentucky, I've pushed it to like mid-October and towards the end of October, depending on how warm it's been in the past. And it was okay. It did all right, but I didn't quite have as much above ground growth to really protect that soil as I was wanting to. So I'm really trying to make sure it's in by like October 1st this year, which, we'll see. But there's still time to do that if you've not. So from that perspective.
We, excuse me, we don't really end up growing a lot of fall produce. We always have the intentions to grow it. We're like, yeah, this is the year. And sometimes we've even seeded stuff. But I kind of mentioned to everyone earlier, I was like, we're still like in full like tomato production right now. But thinking of one fall thing that we do that's been a big investment for us and something that we're going to continue is doing plastic culture strawberries. And that's a crop that we had to place our order for those plants back in May. So when you're picking strawberries, that's when you have to place your order to prepare for the fall, because these things have to get in by the end of September. And so there's going to be a whole block of time where we're going to be reworking that ground, getting soil tested, fertilizer, laying plastic again, all of that irrigation hookup to get those plants in for the fall to hopefully get a great crop of berries as early as, mid-April next year.
So you're in that case, you're growing the strawberries like as an annual, essentially?
Yeah. So the strawberries, when they're grown on plastic culture, you tend to treat them as an annual crop. They end up having some disease issues. If you keep them over, they won't be as productive. So, normally when we do a matted row of strawberries, just planted regular in the ground, you break off those blooms the first year, you let those plants get established, and your hopes to get that second year, you get a good crop of berries on them, versus these plants that are already older plants that you're planting. You're going to get big, large berries the very first year. But there's a lot of maintenance, that goes in with them, watering them through the winter, fertilizing through the winter, covering them when temperatures hit a certain level. But that all starts actually like way back in May. If you want a chance of even getting some, that varieties that you may want, you got to order them in May to get them planted in September.
Yeah. It's the same for like bulbs and stuff like that. We talked about that before, just like your tulips, your daffodils, you can find them in Lowe's and stuff. You'll be planting those in the fall, pretty much any time before the ground freezes, October through December. Really, I've planted in December. Peony roots kind of the same way. But if you're wanting something really specific and not just whatever the box store has, you're ordering those usually like at the latest when you're starting to pick them. Some of that stuff you're ordering even earlier, which is always hectic. But even if in like ordering plugs, so I know a lot of people who are growing small scale, like, whether they're considered commercial because they're selling stuff, or even just kind of large home garden style, some people are ordering in their plugs. And like Jessica said, like even with strawberries, with flowers, that stuff takes time to grow from that greenhouse grower. So you're going to have to order it early enough. For the annuals that I order and have delivered, it's like 16 weeks is the lead time for some of that stuff to get it so that it comes to me the size that it can go in the ground. So that's also kind of a thought process. But I want to reiterate, if you can still do some stuff, like, it's the 1st of September. If you're wanting to get some stuff in the ground, like rip those tomatoes out and put in some lettuce or some radish, and just look at stuff that is cold tolerant. And in Kentucky, depending on where you are and kind of what your microclimates are, you may be harvesting into December. And if you can give it a little bit of protection, you might be harvesting later than that, just kind of depending on what wild week of weather we get coming in. You never know. But and then if you don't want to do it, because by September, by the end of August, usually a lot of us are exhausted and we're like, we're done. And respect goes out to you there. We've all been there. Do a soil test and just kind of get prepared for next year. So I encourage you to cover your soil. So whether that be with a cover crop of something living, or just covering it with just like a piece of plastic to kind of prevent erosion. that can be enough, just cover it with something is usually what we say. But now is a really great time to start putting down, if you need lime or you need sulfur or, you're low in magnesium or whatever that is. Doing a soil test now, which I just dropped mine off today.
Got it.
So doing one now to prep for your spring crops or early summer crops that you're going to put in is a great thing to be doing. And then just kind of doing some cleanup.
Yeah. As Alexis also mentioned, like when you're done, right? So going hard all summer, taking care of those plants, keeping them, going to markets every single weekend, right? And it's kind of like for us personally, when we make that decision of like, all right, we're not going to do our like weekly or every other week fungicide sprays for these tomatoes that keeps them going. And it's amazing to see the difference of when you're on a fungicide spray schedule for some of these plants, when you stop, how fast they go down. And so that's kind of one of the things that's for us too. It's like, okay, how much longer do we want to keep this up and really try to keep them going? And then stopping that. And then how many more Saturdays do we want to give to the market? Oh wait, it's football season. We really want to go to football games now, right? How many more times? But I think a lot of that goes into it is just like, okay, because that's, money too, going into those sprays and all your time and everything.
I like to tell people, and doing this myself and seeing the change it's made, of making some reflection on the season right after the season. So we usually talk about like winter is a good period, time for reflection. And, that's not wrong, right? Like absolutely, by all means, do some of that big thinking. But I think what has at least helped me a lot is, reflecting on the past couple months, whatever you would call summer or spring or whatever, right after it happens, because it's like you're really feeling it. And maybe you go back again in December and like think about it more strategically, but what do you feel like at the end of it? Do you feel great? Could you have done more, or was this the perfect amount? And feeling that in the moment, I think, is really important. And for me, like doing that last year and how exhausted I was by like the 1st of August, when I still had a whole fall season, when fall is a really big season for cut flowers, I still had this whole fall to go, and it was like just exhausting to even think about because I was so tired. And so one thing I did, I made note of that, and I kind of semi took July off. I started a lot of crops later so that they weren't, didn't need a whole lot. I wasn't doing a ton of picking in July. I didn't have big events. And that has made a huge difference in how I feel right now, going into September and a big, busy season. And so I think making some immediate thoughts on how you feel at the end of each kind of quarter can be really, really valuable. So just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned how fall can be like spring as far as busyness and planning everything else. The difference is you're not coming off of a forced period of sitting inside the house, sipping hot cocoa and chilling and looking at seed catalogs. You're, oh, wow, another season of planning after I'm already exhausted from a season of working. Just a couple of things just to follow up in case anybody's not familiar, hasn't heard the soil testing and amending episode. Alexis was mentioning stuff like sulfur and lime to be able to adjust the pH of your soil. If your soil is one way or the other, those things take time. And so that's part of the reason why this is a good time to do that, is you can get that down so that it'll be ready for you in spring. I think the other thing too, as far as crops go, we have a whole episode on garlic. And garlic is something this time of year. Unfortunately, it's probably sold out in many places. I don't know. We were just talking about that a little bit before for one of these episodes. But I think, this is the time of year where you're thinking about starting to plant garlic that will then grow throughout the year and then be usually available the following July, somewhere in there. That's another part of as far as the crops go. But so can I just go ahead in the last little bit of time we have here, ask to be a little bit touchy feely, like I said I would? So you said
we would be disappointed if
I started
not,
a little
Brett.
bit.
You did. No, you did. You opened up the door for me, so you have only yourself to thank for that. But you said, at the end of at this time of year, what are the things that you're thinking or feeling this time of year? And so I'm curious right now, what is it that you are feeling as this initial transition toward fall happens, whether that be horticulture and seasonality related or something else. I'm curious.
One of my smarty pants friends happened to mention 2 or 3 days ago. He likes to throw darts at me. I think he said, this is the last 8:30 sunset we're going to see until next May. And I was like, thanks for that, bro. But that is something that, makes me feel a certain way when you get off work at whatever time that is. Let's say an average day, not a long day, but an average day, you get home, you have a certain amount of daylight left. And that's really special to me, to do activities and have all the fun and do all the things. And that's getting shorter. And so I'm keenly aware of that. I mean, that's a huge thing. I mean, daylight. And, if it's personal or if you're doing production, it's always been a big thing to me. But that's what I'm feeling this time of year, is that the days are getting shorter. And that impacts a lot of different things for me.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. The fall is a busy but relaxing time, if that makes sense for us, for my family, because it's kind of like I get through county fair, I get through state fair, and then we have like 1 or 2 other big things at work. And then I'm off a lot because I'm going to have a 2-year-old in the end of September and then a 4-year-old on Halloween. So I end up taking a lot of time off in September and October, and it's kind of, like I said, the garden is all wrapping up, right? Like Alexis and I always joke about, I'll see you in the winter, or I'll see you in the fall, like if we ever want to hang out, right? Because that's just how our schedule. So we're actually like where we don't ever do vacations, like really in the spring or summer. That's a very foreign concept to me for like my whole life, to be like vacation in the summer. What? Right. That tends to be more of our fall. And so it kind of just like all leads in. And the next thing I know, it's like Thanksgiving and Christmas and a new year. Like it's all, when I say it's all downhill, it's not downhill in a bad way. It's like just, coasting into like.
Yeah, like the best part of the bike ride, when you get to the top of the hill and then like, okay, here we go.
Here we go. I love the summer months too, but just a lot of fun things to look forward to coming up.
Seems like once the holidays hit, I mean, I know it's always been a time to for gathering for me, and I love all the gathering things and events. I mean, that's a big switch over too. Is the gathering. I call it the holidays, DAZ, because I mean, it goes by so quick. It can, especially, depending on if you're traveling, for family or whatever, or vacations or breaks or from production, whatever. But that's a big change too, is the holidays tend to have an impact on all of those things.
I'm starting to get amped again because, like I said, like from a growing perspective, but even as like an agent, until the first freeze, you are going to keep getting calls because all these plants are going down in the home gardens. People are, again, it's, if you're commercial, a lot of those people are doing the same kind of stuff they're doing in the spring. And so where July actually, at least in my experience, tended to be a little bit more quiet. Like you would think, the heat of summer, everybody's got a garden. It'd be a big deal. The plants are usually doing pretty well by that point in the season. They're like really starting to take off. People are excited, or they're away on vacation and they come back and it's fall and they're home, because they've got school and they're looking at their garden more. And the plants are starting to decline because diseases come in, insects have come in, the cooler nights, stuff like that. So I think, from an extension perspective, it'll ramp up and then shut down, right? Like right as soon as freeze hits, you're done from that perspective. And then from a grower perspective, at least for winter growing, whether that's fruit, veggies or flowers or whatever, we start to amp back up, and my brain doesn't shut off until like December 31st because
it just doesn't.
Yeah, well, January, don't call. Like, I'm tired. But for people who, maybe are selling CSA shares or things like that, they're thinking of things for, they're doing holiday markets, or they're doing, prepping stuff for marketing. Like there's a lot of marketing that happens in November and December, and then you tack on just like family stuff. So like I'm starting to get like amped but also stressed
No.
But where I had that like kind of took a little bit of a break, I feel better this year than I would have this time last year. So
and you said that break was like a strategic kind of thing,
yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah, that was like
awesome.
Well,
awesome.
and just like you looked at multiple things. It was like you look at your sales, you look at how you feel, and I think looking at the sales perspective made me feel better about wanting to do it anyways, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of the time we, as farmers, we're like, we got to take advantage of it. You got to be constantly selling. And even though sustainably speaking, maybe it would be better if you took that time because you would do better in the fall when you're really needed. So looking at the numbers really backed up the feeling I was having. And so it made me feel better about that. So that's why it's important to keep your numbers.
So you weren't losing as much juice as you were gaining from the squeeze or the lack of squeeze.
Yeah. Exactly. So feeling a little bit more refreshed to maybe do some more things during a more lucrative time of the year. Hopefully. I might not. I might just be like, whatever, I'm done.
I'm done because I am. Yeah,
I'm done because I am. And that's what's going to keep you going. So listen to yourself a little bit, like you got to grind sometimes, but there's also, that's why we want farmers to keep farming, right? So they've got to listen to themselves and be supported by people, that it's okay to maybe, quit a few weeks early. Like Jessica said, maybe you just stop spraying.
Maybe we just stop spraying and we go to football games on Saturday.
Yes. Let nature take its course and schedules take their course.
You've got to take care of, your mental, and that I have learned the hard way.
We want to still love this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't need, it's all chores, right? Chores. But at the same time, there's a reason why we keep doing it, right? You still want to enjoy what you do at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Not get burned out.
Do you think you yourself in like May would annoy yourself in August? You're like, what is wrong with you? Why are you committing?
Did we not learn from last season?
And September me are very different people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, January and February, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we should do this. We should add this product. Look at this seed catalog. I'm going to make all of these labels. Let's, all these marketing things. What has CCD offered that we can, learn about and do? And then,
you go to all these conferences and you're like, that's such a great idea. I'm going to do it.
Idea.
And you're like,
I could
this is
do
almost
that.
as good an idea as the bottomless coffee available in the lobby. Woo!
Yeah. Both of them have their downsides. Yes. It always starts with the seed catalogs with me, man. When I start getting those and look at new cultivars and things, I'm like, oh. And then at the end of the season, I'm like, oh.
I'm going to grow all the things. Even if I know it doesn't grow in this zone, right? I'm going to keep buying that lemon tree, right?
Yeah.
I got another one.
You're going to have that special season where your avocados and lemon tree does both equally well. So
listen, I've decided I'm a winter tulip grower apparently this year. So I've got, a couple thousand bulbs coming. So who knows what December and January, Alexis, will actually feel like this year.
You mentioned a big breaking point, Alexis, is like that frost. Once we get that first hard frost, spoken from an allergy sufferer, my whole family, and I look forward to that because that really is a biological breaking point for a lot of growing things and things that have blooms and this, that, and the other. But for allergies and all of that, that's a real breaking point for me. And it's always bittersweet to see that first hard frost. It's going to wipe out whatever's in the garden that's left, what few things I had that's left, unless it's super cold hardy. But it also knocks out a lot of the allergy causing things for me. So it's not all bad.
A friend referred to that time of year as that she felt like that she usually like it feels like she's shed a skin like a snake almost. And that the one year a couple years ago where it was like 90 degrees all the way through Halloween and there was no real break. It was like feeling like you were stuck in that skin and couldn't shed it until like that cool had come. And I thought that was really apt.
And that hermit crab who couldn't find another shell.
Yeah.
Just stuck in it.
Just stuck here.
I may have outgrown my home, but I'm going to stay here.
There always comes a point where you're in the season, you're like, I just wish you would die. Just die. Just
I
I'm done.
feel that way about
you feel
tomatoes.
guilty about not doing anything with it, right? But you're like,
the
just die
indeterminate
already.
tomatoes.
And that's
Yes.
why
Don't
the
tempt
flail
me.
mower is such a great investment, because you can just mow it down. And then you're like, you only feel guilty for like the 2 minutes it takes you to mow it down, and then it's just like this big relief.
Yeah.
So in
then
your
you look at a
BCS
nice clean
costume, you would
palette.
have a flail mower attachment.
Oh
No.
yeah. Oh yeah. Destroy it all.
That's fitting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all of your problems are in front of the flail mower.
I'm
Every
thinking
one
of
them.
like design, like painting on like one of those, like just like a mouth with big teeth on it,
Like
and
Salvador
like angry
Dali
eyeballs
style,
on
or
the flail mower, just like really getting after
like
it.
a World War II fighter plane.
Or like Cookie
with a
Monster,
big
it's
mouth,
sort of like
kinda
Cookie. Yeah. That's what
retro.
I was thinking.
Yeah.
I like
Like a
it.
bomber.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, the blue bomber.
Mhm.
I see something forming in my mind that
Mhm.
needs
Made
to
in-
happen
made
with your
in Italy.
BCS.
Well, I'm really good at taking diaper boxes and other cardboard and making costumes. So
Nice. All right.
when
Well,
you have some free time, if you want to start working on that,
Okay.
we can
all right.
get that
First
Bo
of
and I
all,
will go
that's your
trick-or-treating
downfall.
together
When
as
we have free
tractors.
time. See, it's
when
already
we have
started.
free time. See you in the winter.
Yeah.
right?
See you in the winter.
TikTok has made sure that nobody has free time anymore because there's all of these wonderful little ideals floating around out there. It's like, oh, that won't take that much longer to do homemade, cinnamon rolls. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. And then you're addicted all of a
6
sudden.
hours later.
And 6 hours later. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I don't know. I look
What
forward
about
to the
you,
winding
Brett?
down. Yeah. What
What's
do you have
What
going
are
on,
your
Brett?
What's that?
reflections? What are your reflections?
What are you
we talked
thinking?
the whole time.
What do you got in the fields?
Oh, I don't know.
More
It's,
bread?
what's
I'll
that?
advocate for that.
More
More
bread?
bread. You make a beautiful loaf. So
Open a thing of sauerkraut and just eat on it.
Yeah, we do sauerkraut grilled cheeses. That's like a very
That sounds good.
strong
It's
part of this year.
delicious. Yeah. Annie gave me the thought.
Yeah. I don't know. It's been kind of a difficult and unusual year for me in a variety of ways, and with each passing part of the season, there's kind of like a reminder of that things keep moving and keep going, and that's kind of, I don't know. It's been like a re-realization. I also we put in a bunch of perennials and stuff at our house in the yard over the last number of years, and done some pretty intense re-landscaping. And so seeing everything move through the seasons and begin to senesce, and then looking ahead to when it will come back around is pretty cool. I am ready to not have to water bonsai as much.
Mm-hmm.
I love them, but whew,
Yeah,
it's like a lot, especially when it's hot. So yeah, I mean, those are some of the main things that are on my mind or that I'm kind of feeling. I tend to like to read as it gets cooler and cooler.
Yes,
even more.
absolutely.
And so I got a head start on that. Been reading some stuff, and
I'm starting on my 80s collection of horror movies.
oh,
But reading is way up. That is true. When it's darker, it always seems like I'll read a little bit more. Yeah, I'm thought about that, Brett.
Yeah.
That's always a cool time.
and I don't know if that's just me symbolically going back to school or something. Like, okay, time to read books.
Literally or symbolically.
No, you're just hibernating.
Read all the books.
Yeah, if they're not going to give me a personal pan pizza for reading during the summer, then it's not going to happen.
Hey, book it was
Yeah.
the thing back then. Absolutely.
was the
Lose
thing.
my number, Pizza Hut. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know. I'm figuring it out all over again, I guess. But
it's a season of change.
I feel like there's a song in here. Seasons change. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
we
know.
were singing Landslide earlier because Jessica was like talking about
that was my
getting
vibe. I was
older
going through some Fleetwood. Yeah.
and I am getting older too.
There you go. It's good times. It's good times, but heading into fall, good times.
Well, not to end on a bummer note, because
Right.
as Ray said, PSL's about to redrop, or have they already dropped, Ray?
They maybe dropped for me a week or two ago at the gas
Uh-oh.
stations. Hey, listen, they may be dollar store PSLs, but they're still PSLs. They may taste like pure sugar, but that's fine. One and done with those
what's
guys.
in a name? A PSL by any other name would taste just as fall like.
Yeah, they're kind of
I
rough.
think that's what they said. Yeah.
There's a lot of variation in the quality
pumpkin spice
of
latte
pumpkin
for the
spice
uninitiated.
lattes.
I'm sure everybody out there knows, but
Yeah, it seems like that those things have gotten sweeter as I've gotten older. Not in a necessarily a good way. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I'm like, whew. A lot of sweetness to those.
I used to think that I really liked them, but now I'm like,
they're a lot now.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm an apple cider girly, so
apple cider.
Yeah.
Taste of the season to come.
Hot
I like
cold?
it.
Both.
I do love hot apple cider.
Literally whatever's handed to me.
You've got to choose.
Oh,
if you don't choose, you get neither.
Well,
I'm going hot.
Then
I'm going hot.
I don't know why I felt the need to escalate this.
I was like, okay, we're doing aggressive apple cider choices.
Yeah.
You have to choose, or you get nothing.
If you're going to an orchard in 30 minutes, are you getting the hot or the cold?
Yeah. Well, I guess when I'm usually drinking it, it's cold outside, so it makes sense for it to be hot.
Yeah.
I think that's when I drink those. Yeah.
Other than like water and water adjacent things, I think most drinks I prefer hot. Tea, coffee.
Tea yeah.
Cider.
I like the warmth of the things, yeah, especially when it starts to, get colder out. I like all
Fuels
the hot
my
things.
cold soul.
Have you all ever heard of the Ayurvedic doshas?
I don't think I have.
No.
It's sort of like a a personality test adapted for like crunchy people who like to appropriate Eastern philosophy.
Perfect.
It's like yoga. It's like yoga, sort of. It has a meaning, it has applicability, but it has a different context. Blah blah blah. But it's like
general's
this
chicken.
idea,
Sure.
The idea that like we have these elemental. I'm gonna butcher it now, and it's gonna be on the record. So I'm going full speed ahead. But you have these sort of different people have different distributions of Ayurvedic doshas of like this sort of like fire, earth, water, that kind of elemental thing.
So Avatar, right?
Exactly.
Right,
you are familiar.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I would be. So like if you have like a fiery dosha, there's certain foods that tend to be in the Ayurveda tend to be more applicable to, whereas if you have more of like a slow, you need a little bit more excitement in your life, which is like someone like me, you want something that's spicy, that's hot drinks, etc. have this way of kind of nourishing that. It's an interesting way of thinking about like the self, and overall you're supposed to kind of be balanced, but it's when you become imbalanced, which direction do you go? And we all know there's some people who get quiet and go off and pout in a corner like me. There's people who get lash out and mad and fiery, and there's a whole range of different people. But I have found that I like hot stuff, spicy, hot. It brings up a little life in me.
Trying to liven things up.
I don't know where that came from.
Is there a quiz that we can take to figure this out?
Right, like, is it a Cosmo quiz? I want to take one.
Yeah, I do want to tell you. I want to see which avatar I am.
We should
water
do
form or wind form and air, or what am I?
We need to do the what's it called, Brett? The Enneagrams.
Enneagram, yeah.
And we should do it with this group and then like talk about how that makes it.
Are you all familiar with the
kind
Enneagram?
Of gardeners we are because of that? Like, I feel like that'd be cool.
You guys want to buy some crystals from me?
Do you know what your moon sign is?
Yeah. Enneagram, also a fun thing. The poor people that work with me and were hanging out with me last year, I think it was, I got super into it. That one's one where like there's this numbers from 1 through 9, and each one of us sort of has like a associated set of practices or tendencies. It's along the lines of a personality test, though the people who hold it up would say it's slightly different. But at the core of it is about trying to figure out how to work better with other people by understanding them better, understanding yourself better, and that sort of thing. So. Yeah,
I want to make it like a garden version, like how that relates to how our gardeners. Okay. Just like
that would be fun.
Yeah. So if you're like normally a 3, you tend to like, I don't actually know what a 3 is, but I'm guessing
you a 3.
I don't know what I am. I've never done it, but
She's not going to own that, is she? No.
I don't know. I was like, do you tend to like straight lines in your rows, or are you more of a like,
an English
throw it
gardener.
Anywhere kind of grower? I don't know. I think that'd be fun.
Are you more of an English gardener?
I like fish with my chips.
Exactly.
Save us, Alexis. I don't know where. I don't know where Ayurvedic doshas. I have.
This is where reflections go, people. We reflect.
We hope we gave you some tips to maybe do your own a little bit of reflection, or looking towards the future. So maybe that's where you're at, and or maybe you just got a few laughs out of the random things that we come up with. We're here to please. So if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review. If you didn't enjoy this episode, you can still leave us a review. We still expect 5 stars, but you can tell us not your best if you so choose.
Who would say that?
No one. That's why I'm saying it.
Don't even bring that in.
The 3s would say that. I'm pretty sure the 3s would.
3s would say could have been better.
Could have been better. I mean, it's 3s. Anyways, so we would love if you leave us a review. It helps other people find us. You can also find us on Instagram at Horticulture Podcast. You can shoot us a message on there if you have any ideas, if that's something easier for you to access. If you have any thoughts, please feel free to reach out. You can also do that. We've had people who email us and say, I am very lost about what you meant by this episode, and or have ideas for future ones.
People just say more mulch content, more mulch content,
and then we will make sure to invite Josh back on for the mulch 2.0 episode, Mulch Boy. So, but you can do that. You can reach out to us via email. That's horticulturepodcast@l.uky.edu. That goes to all of us, and so one of us will answer depending on kind of what the question is. Some of us are better than others at things. But anyways, we hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and that as we grow it, you will grow with us, and that you'll join us next week. Have a great one.